I want to reread some of my favorite books from when I was a teenager, which was several years ago now, but I don't talk about it. I've got 3 books here. I thought I'd give myself a little bit of a breather. This is my first reading vlog, and 2 of which are actually in front of me. 1 is in the mail and it arrives next week, so I thought let's start the reading vlog now. This might take me a good week to get through. I have not read these books in over 15 years. It's been a long time. Still, I've always had in the back of my mind, I love these books, but do I actually love them? So I went ahead and repurchased them because I just haven't been able to keep books throughout all of this time. So the first one is White Oleander. All of these books actually are movies as well. They were adapted into movies. This is written by Janet Fitch. And I believe that I saw the movie before I read the book. As soon as I saw the movie, I was like, I want to read this book. And I want to say I was about 12 or 13 when I saw the movie, which I don't think is an appropriate age for this type of content, especially also in the movie. There is, I mean, trigger warning, but this book does have a lot of, I want to say, like abuse, not childhood trauma, let's put it that way. And it's about a girl whose mother, she's a single mother, and her life is basically turned upside down when her mother goes to jail. And I don't want to say why because I don't want to spoil it. Just ends up going through her teenage years, which is her, you know, like obviously one of the most important times of your life is your teenage years, through the foster care system. And she goes through several different foster care families, as it were, and what that all means, what happens to her. The second one I have is Memoirs of a Geisha, which is a pretty big book, I want to say. I mean, for me, it's a big book. It's like 500 pages. It is also a very famous movie. I believe that I saw the movie and then I read the book, so the same thing as The White Oleander. The movie does a very good job of capturing the story of Memoirs of a Geisha, but what you don't always hear about is her inner dialogue, her inner thoughts, and there's obviously things in the book that aren't in the movie because movies just never cover everything. I think it's a good adaptation, but I do think the book is very good as well. And this is definitely something that I've been wanting to reread for a long time. I read it when I was a teenager, and you know, it's just one of these beautiful stories, these beautiful love stories. It's about a girl who ends up being sold by her dad just because they're not making any money. They're very, very poor, and then she grows up to become a geisha. And then the war breaks out, and I don't know, I'm not describing this very well, but it's a very beautiful story. The third book, like I said, I do not have, but it is The Dark Half by Stephen King. Now, my brother used to have a lot of Stephen King books. I tried to read them when I was younger, about 6 years younger than him. So I want to say I read this book when I was 10 or 11. I think I was very young, and again, I don't think I was age appropriate to read this book because it does have a lot of darkness in it. But yeah, I was just trying to, you know, read some of his books, see which books I liked. He had like The Shining and It, and I could not get into those when I was younger. I just thought they were huge. But this is the one book that at the time I really got into from Stephen King. I don't want to give any spoilers, but I loved it when I read it. I thought it was so fascinating, so interesting, and I really liked the I guess the twist, even though it's not necessarily a twist. This is another one that there is a movie adaptation. I would not say that the movie is good by any means. The book is a lot better than the movie, so don't go watch the movie if you don't want to spoil the book. So enough of me talking, let's get into my vlog, and we'll see if I generally like these books or if I need to lower my rating on them. It's about like 8 o'clock at night, and it's been a bit of an understatement to say that I've been struggling today. I just am not having a good day. I'm not really in the mood to film anything, but I do want to read this book, so I've been like filming whatever I can. I've barely read any pages though. I've read like, what, 25 pages or something. So far, reading it, I'm remembering that there is so much more in this book than there is in the movie. And because I like both of them, it's, you know, I can appreciate both of them as separate entities, but I can't help thinking, why didn't they put this in the movie? They should have added more of this in the movie. And maybe I'll watch the movie after, I'm not sure. But yeah, I just love the writing. The writing in this book is so delicious. She's so innocent, but then not, because of all the things that her mother has put her through so far and told her about, or she like worships her mother. And yeah, it's all coming back to me. I really love this book. I hope that it lives up to everything, but I already feel like it's going to be a 5-star, and it, you know, it already was a 5-star in my head because it's been a book that I have loved, but rereading it, I can already tell just straight away, even just from the first page, I'm like, oh yes, yes. So this is my new addition to the brood. This is another hibiscus, but it's a mini one, and she's orange, and I'm very excited for her. She's very bushy compared to my other one, which has lost all of its flowers and they're just regrowing now. She is very, very bushy, and I thought, oh, she'll have lots of flowers, but they're not coming out yet. I do want to give a little update as to where I am in this book. So I am at page 199. I kind of just ended it right in the middle of a paragraph last night because I was so tired, but I'm pretty much halfway through because it's got less than 400 pages. So I'm basically at 200. So one thing that I didn't remember in here, which I kind of remember now, I guess vaguely, but really not, was there's a whole chat, like several chapters in here of her in a different foster family and a whole different story that is not in the movie at all. And I honestly did not remember this. I can understand why they cut it out of the movie, because she goes to this other family and then there's this neighbor, and the neighbor is black and her family is very racist, but she likes the neighbor and the neighbor is apparently a prostitute. It's just, it's kind of like, okay. And she's 14, 15 and doing stuff that, I don't know, maybe 14, 15-year-olds do. It kind of surprises me that when I was this age reading this book, I liked it. Hopefully that I could finish it, if not tonight or today. I do plan on reading quite a lot today. I'm hoping I can finish it today. If not, then it'll be tomorrow, and then I'll start Memoirs of a Geisha. And then come Wednesday, hopefully I'll be in a good spot to, you know, hopefully wrap up Memoirs of a Geisha or be close to it, and then I can start on the Dark Half. So it's been a couple days. I'm only on page 29, which is where I left off the last time you saw me. I just have had a busy week. It's Tuesday and I don't know. It's been a week. But I want to do some reading now. So it is the next day. I actually got to page 127 last night. I've been really enjoying reading this. It is such an easy book to read, and coming off of the last book, I'm kind of thinking I want to change my rating on the last book, because I think I initially gave it 5 stars because it's a book that I really enjoyed when I was young, and I was like, oh, maybe it's like a 4.75 now because, you know, this and that, and there's like a big chunk in the story that I just find a little bit dull and a little far-fetched as well. So I'm actually going to change the White Oleander rating to a 4. I really think this is a 5-star, and like just comparing them, the two, going one back to the other, obviously completely different writing styles, completely different stories, different worlds. I like worlds apart from each other, but they still follow like young girls and their like coming of age stories and the hardships that they face and everything. Like you look at this book and you think, wow, it's going to be super complicated, and honestly I think I kind of remembered it being like that, but it is not. I'm flying through this. And yeah, I've got a lot of the book left to go, but I'm really enjoying it. It's at the point where she is like 12 years old. She's just met the man of her life, who she ends up trying to win his heart over throughout the course of the book and everything like that. But she just met him and got the little shaved ice cone with the cherry flavor, and that like gives her a whole reason to keep on going, because at this point in her time she's lost her whole family, she's lost her sister, she doesn't know where she is, she can't be a geisha, or so she thinks, and so it's just, you know, everything coming to a head, and then that one chance encounter with the chairman really just gets her motivated. But yeah, it's really fun rereading this. I've really enjoyed rereading both of these books, but just coming off that other one, White Oleander is beautifully written, and it is a stunning book to read, and I think it's a really good book to read for the first time if you've never even seen the movie. I think it's a good book to read, but I do think that the movie is better than the book. is the end of the vlog. I have read all 3 of these books now. Let me give my verdict. I know I was giving my verdicts of the other 2 in between the vlog and like catching you up. I finished this last night. I thought I was gonna, I actually said yesterday, oh, I don't think I'm gonna finish it, but then I just kept reading it, and I finished it. So unfortunately, this one was not a book that I really enjoyed reading or rereading again. I don't want to take away from the first time that I read it, because I do remember really liking it the first time I read it, but I was very young the first time I read it. And I just feel like it was so repetitive. The dialogue was so boring. I skimmed so many conversations because I felt like they were having the same conversations over and over again. I found the wife of the protagonist so annoying. Her name is Liz, and I honestly just found her infuriating, the way that she spoke and the way that they spoke together. I just did not enjoy it. I really didn't. And I did enjoy the killer. You know, he has this dark half, and you know, there's this killer going around, but I kind of, I don't know, I think rereading it, I kind of lost the magic that I had, like how I remembered it. I lost a lot of that magic. So I am going to be giving this a 3-star. I don't want to take away the fact that Stephen King has an amazing mind in terms of his imagination and everything like that. I do think that, but I think in this particular book, and I have to read his other books, maybe his more recent books, just to see if it's the same thing, the dialogue was just so boring. and I just didn't, I feel like this book could have had a lot more in it. And if you had taken away a lot of the dialogue, even with the detective, like, or not the detective, the sheriff, his name is Alan, and when he's like at their house with Thad and Liz, honestly, the 3 of them can talk your ear off so much, and it's so boring. And I just was like, okay, let's get to the point. Okay, let's get to it. And I'm just like, come on. And this is like getting a bit boring. And then the ending, I do think a lot of people say the same thing about Stephen King. His endings are a little rushed, or like they're abrupt and they just stop. And that's how this one is. They're like, you have the ending, and then there's the epilogue. But the epilogue doesn't really have a lot in it. So you're like, okay, but then like, how is it all resolved? Like, there's so many loose ends in this particular book. There is no way, if this had really happened, imagine all this had happened and the FBI is after this guy and everything. There's no conclusion. There's nothing, like, how does he get away with it? Like, it's just, it's one of those things. So yeah, I gave that a 3-star. Really quickly on these other 2, because I know I kind of like already said my opinion. White Oleander is a really hard book to read, honestly. And if you have had a traumatizing childhood or have experienced anything to do with abuse as a child in your teenage years, or in the foster care system, or just also with older people, you know, in general, and if you like that, I would stay away from this book, because in the way that it is written, you're in the eyes of the girl, the young girl, and you start off, she's about 9 years old or something, and then she gets a bit older, or she's maybe 10 or whatever when you start the book, and then you go through all the way up until she's like 18 or so, or maybe 20. I can't recall. Anyway, so you kind of go through all of that, those years, and because you're in the mind of her, she goes through a lot of awful things that happen to her, and situations I couldn't even grasp and understand myself, because I've not been through that. It's really heartbreaking, honestly, but she doesn't see all the bad things the way that an outsider like us would view it. Like, that's completely wrong. Like, you know, that's not right. It's a beautifully written book. I do like, I liked reading it again, but I found the middle sort of story a little bit dull, and that's the part that's not even in the movie. So that was like, okay, I kind of know why they cut that out, because it's very Dullsville. And I gave this a 4-star, and I think it definitely is a 4-star. I know at some point I was like, it might be a 4.75, but I think ultimately, if I had to really narrow it down, I might give it like a 3.75 instead, because it's not a book that I could really recommend to absolutely everyone. It's not a universally loved book, I think, because of what's in there and the story and the subject matter, but I can't deny that Janet Fitch wrote a beautiful story. Like, this is a beautiful book, and it's also a beautiful movie. So I gave it 4 stars. It's not a 5-star anymore. And then the 5-star, which thankfully is still a 5-star for me, is Memoirs of a Geisha. Absolutely stunning book. There is a reason why this book is in the top, I don't know, maybe 50 books of all time or 100 books of all time. It's in a bunch of lists where it does rank very, very high, because it's one of the easiest books that you could read. Even though it's like 500 pages long, it's a very easy book to read. The language isn't that difficult at all, even though I'm learning about this whole new culture that I have no idea, you know, I don't know anything about this culture. It's very easy to follow, and you're in the mind of this girl, and you know, she's so naive and innocent, and then she's thrown into this world that she doesn't know anything about. She finds the strength from the smallest things to keep going. The ending, I think what I was trying to say about the ending is it's not as romantic as the movie makes it out to be at the end, because at the end, obviously, you know, she falls in love with this older man, but the book doesn't paint this, oh, and they lived happily ever after, blah blah. And the movie I don't think does either, but you know, she ends up being his mistress, I guess, for a while. She quits being a geisha and she ends up in New York, and she opens a little tea house in New York, and none of that's in the movie at all. And I think at the end, what made it so sad for me is because she longed for this man for so long. When she finally got him, he was an old man, you know, and she didn't have him completely because he was married. And you know, it's not a love story that you would thrive for. Like I would not thrive for this kind of love, but it's the only one that she has been able to dream of, because that's all that she's worth, you know. And it made me very sad at the end. I did cry. I did cry. I think in this last chapter I was like, oh my goodness. And it wasn't even like a sad cry, it wasn't a happy cry, it was just a, oh, that makes me feel cry. That made me feel. So this was a really enjoyable book, and I'm so happy that I reread it. And I actually picked up some of these annotating tabs, and I'm gonna try to annotate it. I'm gonna try to go back in and because there's so many passages where I thought it was really beautiful, and or moments in the story where I'm like, oh, that's really nice. So I kind of want to go back in, and because I do love this book, and I've officially told myself I love it. I've read it twice now, and I cannot give it less than a 5-star, absolutely. So the bar is set high for me, because if I'm going to be reading all these other books that I've just purchased, you know, and I want to be reading 5 stars, there's probably barely any of the books that I've hauled recently. The likelihood that any of them are like 5-star worthy, you know, it's pretty slim. So yeah, I might be a super picky person when it comes to 5-star books, but yeah, I was really happy about that, and I'm very happy that I did this vlog. It is over now, and I'm actually, as soon as I finished the Dark Half last night, I was like, I need to grab another book. I need to grab another book, so I grabbed 2 more books, but those would be in another vlog situation type thing. But yeah, that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. I might do it again. I'm already thinking of what other books that I read as a childhood that I would want to read again, you know. So I'm already thinking, oh, I should have picked that one, I should have picked that one, and that one, and that one. So this was a lot of fun, and I think it really helped me get back into reading books that I'd already read, because you know, I wasn't looking at it with fresh eyes. I mean, I was in a way, but I wasn't, because I kind of knew the story. So it was like, I think it eased me in. I think reading White Oleander was probably the hardest one to read out of the 3 by far. The Dark Half was the easiest one for me to read when I actually sat down and read it. And the Memoirs of a Geisha is a pretty hefty book in itself. And you know, you want to take in everything. So I really enjoyed it, and I didn't want to rush it or anything like that. But yeah, thank you so much. This is my first official like little book vlog that I did, and I'm super excited to do more. And if you have any like ideas and thoughts of like what other themes I could do, let me know. I definitely want to do a 24-hour readathon. I'm going to be doing that, I believe, next. So that will be really exciting, because I've already kind of thought about what I'm going to do. We're going away for the weekend, so I think I might do that over the weekend. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!